Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining me again today. So today we are going to talk to you about the 3 best animals to start off with if you are going to be starting your small farm or hobby farm. Stay tuned to find out more. Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms and
Jocelyn.
yay! So today we are talking to you about the 3 easiest, best animals that we think you should start off with if you're going to start off with your hobby farm. Now we have had a lot of animals. What all have we had, Joss? We've had sheep, goats,
Cows,
cows, pigs,
pigs, ducks, chickens,
llamas,
geese,
alpacas,
uh,
turkeys.
guineas. Oh,
Ooh. Guineas, turkeys. That was a disaster. Remember that?
yeah.
Yeah, we had black Spanish turkeys. I would chase the children up from the school
Bus.
from the school bus, and roost on my truck and scratch my truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was amazing. Chickens, guineas, ducks, all kinds of ducks, Muscovies, call ducks, all kinds of stuff. Pygmy goats, Nigerian dwarf goats, boar goats, dairy goats. Just so many different things. And so we were talking today, we were like, what would we tell someone if they were going to start their own hobby farm? Now, I grew up raising animals. I had farm animals, or I was around farm animals. I grew up working on a sheep farm. Jocelyn did not. You just kind of married into it. So sheep was the first thing for you, right?
Correct.
And then shortly thereafter, I think we got goats, but then everything else. So, the 3 animals that we came up with were
Chickens, goats, and sheep.
chickens, goats, and sheep. I think that's fair. So we're going to go through kind of the high points, low points of each one. The first one we wanted to talk about was chickens. This is kind of like the go-to, I think, for most people that are starting small farms, hobby farms. The utility of them is good. That is to say, like, you can sell them whole, you can sell their eggs, you can eat them. They're relatively easy to raise, right? What are the things that you got to consider with chickens? What would you say?
Food and water.
Food and water.
Uh,
If you have a farm like we do, you don't even need a chicken house. It comes in handy, but you don't even need one. They just kind of will find shelter wherever you put them. What else do you need to keep in mind with the chickens? I guess the breed matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've had some horrible situations with mean roosters, huh?
Correct.
What breeds have we had that were mean roosters?
Dominique.
Dominique, Bardrock, and Buff Orpington, right?
I was going to say what was more.
Or just
Buff.
the Buff Orpington was the worst one I think we had.
Yes.
But it seems like some of the bigger breeds are actually more docile. Like the Black Jersey Giant has been really docile. Moran, we've had Marvin. He's been really nice. So the chickens I think are good, and then kind of think outside of the box too. If you don't just have the chickens for eggs and for meat, they also do other valuable things on your farm too. Like they go around and kind of clean things up too, right?
Yeah. Bug control.
Ticks, flies. We do not have a fly problem here on the farm, even though we raise sheep and goats. We don't have a fly problem. We still have a few miniature cows. We still have donkey. We still have a few other odds and ends. But for the most part, our 3 that we've settled on over the years have been chickens, sheep, and goats. So that's really about it with the chickens, huh?
Yeah. They're very low maintenance.
Yeah, very low maintenance. If you're going to get started, it's an easy way to get started. And if you don't want to deal with any headaches, then you just don't deal with the roosters, right? So what do we want to talk about next? The goats, you think?
Sure.
Yeah, so goats. I like goats. I guess my favorite thing about goats is the personality, would you say? They're kind of like, I don't want to say they're a dog, but they're kind of like a dog.
Oh, yeah. If you're outside working, they're right there with you. And with that being said, if you've got tools or something you don't want them in, you got to put them up high, or else they'll definitely get into them.
They will definitely get into them. But the goats, the utility of the goats is nice. People can pick them up, throw them in a truck, throw them in a trailer, move them. You don't have to buy like a lot of stuff to get started with goats. Relatively inexpensive to purchase. And again, the personality. Health-wise, I like goats. I think they're one of the healthiest, especially between sheep and goats, right? Would you agree with that? They tend to have less issues mothering.
Their babies seem to just jump right up after birth.
Right, and
they're very
not
healthy.
as much with that with the sheep.
Correct.
And then you have the different varieties. People tend to buy goats more for pets too. We don't sell a lot of sheep for pets. Our sheep pretty much go for meat, and then our goats go for like show animals. They go for pets. Like you said, they're just more fun. Downside of goats. What do you think the downside of goats is?
They're constantly challenging the fence, trying to find a way out. If there is a way out, they will find it.
They will find, even if there's not a way out, they will find it. We have had the goats, no kidding. We have a 9,000 volt high tensile electric fence, and no kidding, they will go up and shock themselves at least once a week just to see if it's still on. The horns. What do you think about the horns?
I think they kind of come in handy.
Yeah.
They can be dangerous too, but they're really easy to just grab the animal. If you're trying to check them out for something, you just
if you're
grab
trying
them
to
by
check
the
them
horn.
out, the females, of course, now we've talked about this with the males, but trying to get a handle on them, that does help. Although they can use those things for damaging fences, hurting each other, all kinds of things. But overall, I like the goats, and I would say they're probably tend to be my favorite. Although sheep is definitely a close second. So. With that being said, anything else you can think about with the goats that comes to mind, good or bad? I think that pretty much wraps it up, huh? Yeah, so they eat down pasture a little bit better. They're a little bit more even eater. They'll kind of eat everything down.
They're not as picky.
They're not as picky, where the sheep are kind of like, you'll go out to the pasture after they've gone, and you've got like some spots they didn't touch and other spots that they did. If you want to clear out tree areas, stuff like that, you can definitely use goats in that. And they stay in well in the portable electric fencing. They stay in really well. So, all right. So let's head over to the sheep pasture and talk about the sheep really quick. Let's get going. All right. So, are you ready to talk about sheep?
Yes.
Okay. So, this was your first sheep was your first kind of livestock, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I grew up working on a farm that had like hundreds of sheep, and then Jocelyn, I talked her into getting sheep. I was like, hey, let's get one male and two females, and here we are, years later with I don't even know how many. We'd have to check the books. But so sheep. I guess in some ways, well, sheep and goats are very similar, and they're very similar to raise, which is really nice. If you wanted to get into, and that kind of goes in with the three things that we said too, the chicken, sheep and goats. I keep saying sheeps. The chicken, sheep, and goats is that the sheep and the goats, other than copper, right? Feed is pretty much the same. Raising babies is pretty much the same. There's a few like little things, but for all intents and purposes about the same. So you really like sheep. Sheep are kind of your favorite in certain ways. Why don't you tell us about that? What is it that you like so much about sheep over goats?
Like Tim said, they were my first exposure to livestock animals, so they always gonna hold a special place in that regard. But I don't know. They remind you of like a teddy bear. You know, you get like, especially some of the females, if they're really nice, been around you since birth, they just like they want to be near you. And
right. They don't you don't deal with the property damage with them, do you?
No, they don't challenge the fence. They're not as curious, I guess you could say,
right,
about what you're doing all the time.
Right.
So they don't get into as much mischief as the goats do.
Right. Yeah, and so the babies are a little bit harder to raise. We do have more issues with bottle babies with the lambs than
Correct.
we do with the goats. Trying to think of what else really downside of sheep is.
You have to shear them.
Oh, yeah, you have to shear them. Don't let that turn you off too much. We have professional shearers that come out to our farm. They shear them and trim the hooves for us, and it costs us, what, $6 a head?
Yeah,
I think they have it done.
not much.
It's not like it's going to break the bank. The utility of the sheep is very much like the utility of the goats. Like You can pick them up, put them in a truck. Our buyers are pretty equal opportunity buyers, especially for meat, right? They can go either way with sheep or goats. They're not as rambunctious. They don't challenge a fence.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So, like, we talked about the goats and how the goats are constantly shocking themselves. Like, you could put sheep in and turn off the fence, and they're never going to even want to look at it again. So that works out good. I think the sheep get along a lot better with other species.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, like, we have our mini cows over here. If you wanted to kind of get into that with them, like you wanted to get some mini cows, you wanted to get some other animals, I think sheep are a little bit more friendly in that regard.
Yes.
But, so that's kind of where we're at. So that's the lowdown for you about sheep, goats, and chickens. We do think that they're the top 3 animals for you to get started with. If you want to learn more, check out our channel, get involved with the channel, learn more about taking care of them, and that's it. So I'm Tim, and
I'm Jocelyn.
and we will see you next time on Linessa Farms. Thanks for stopping by.